The Muslim world knows this. Why else would Saudi Arabia, a regime that beheads atheists and locks up feminists, pose as a champion of Palestinian human rights? Why would Pakistan, a nuclear power that is ethnically cleansing its own Muslim minorities, cry tears over Gaza? Simple. It's not about justice. It's about jihad. Follow the money. Follow the rhetoric. Follow the dead. In 2002, when Israel reoccupied Jenin, Saudi Arabia funded a martyrs fund rewarding suicide bombers' families. Not with sympathy, with cash. $25,000 per corpse, a down payment on paradise. Where's the Muslim outrage over China's Uyghur camps, over Myanmar's Rohingya massacres, over Syria's 500,000 dead, mostly Muslims slaughtered by Muslims? Silence. But let a Jewish state fire a warning shot near a mosque, and suddenly every dictator with a prayer rug becomes Gandhi. In 1947, the UN offered partition. The Jews said yes. The Arabs said no and invaded. Again in 2000, Ehud Barak offered Arafat 97% of the West Bank, all of Gaza, and East Jerusalem. Arafat walked away, no counteroffer, just the second Intifada.
Look, I worked on this hard, and the only time Yasser Arafat didn't tell me the truth was when he promised me he was going to accept the peace deal that we had worked out, which would have given the Palestinians a state on 96% of the West Bank and 4% of Israel, and they got to choose where the 4% of Israel was. So they would have the effect of the same land of all the West Bank. They would have a capital in East Jerusalem. They would have I can hardly talk about this. And they would have equal access all day, every day to the security towers that Israel maintained all through the West Bank up to the Golden Heights. All this was offered, including, I will say it again, a capital in East Jerusalem and 2 of the 4 quadrants of the old city of Jerusalem, confirmed by the Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and his cabinet. And they said no.
Why? Because compromise is heresy when God's your real estate agent. This is the Imam's playbook. Divide the world into believers and infidels. Paint every loss as humiliation, every win as destiny. And when the bodies pile up, call it resistance. The Palestinians, they're just useful idiots. A battering ram for a bigger war. A war that started 1400 years ago when Muhammad's armies marched north to conquer Jerusalem. A war that won't end until the map matches the prophecy. Let's talk about denial. Not the river in Egypt, the kind that lets smart people play dumb while the world burns. The West loves a sob story, especially one it thinks it can fix. Throw in a few buzzwords: oppression, colonialism, social justice, and suddenly logic takes a back seat to moral vanity. Western hand-wringing over Palestine isn't empathy. It is narcissism. A chance to flag ourselves for every historical sin while ignoring the wolf at the door. The UN, where dictatorships lecture democracies on human rights. In 1975, they declared Zionism racism, the same body that lets Iran chair its Human Rights Council. Let that marinate. But this isn't just hypocrisy, it's strategic delusion. For decades, Europe funded Palestinian NGOs, universities, even textbooks. Ever read one? A 2020 EU audit found maps erasing Israel entirely. Lessons praising martyrs who stab Jews. But Brussels kept writing checks. Why? Guilt, cowardice, and a twisted hope that if they feed the crocodile last, it will eat them last. From the river to the sea. Cute slogan. Too bad most chanting it couldn't find the Jordan River on a map. But here's what they're really demanding: the eradication of the world's only Jewish state. Swap Jews for any other minority, and suddenly the progressives would remember their morals. Yet, universities still host panels comparing Israel to apartheid. Professors still preach decolonization as if Tel Aviv were the new Rhodesia. Never mind the Arabs served in Israel's parliament, courts, hospitals, rights their brethren in Gaza or Riyadh would kill for. But facts don't matter when the story feels good. Settler colonial state, funny term, especially coming from a kid whose iPhone relies on cobalt mined by Congolese slaves. But I digress. Here's the truth. Israel's original sin isn't occupation. It's existence. A Jewish state in the heart of Dar al-Islam is a theological offense, an insult to the Caliphate's ghost. And the West is too busy apologizing to notice the knife at his throat.
And Dr. Gay, at Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment, yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
They call it context. I call it surrender. When France bans Israeli speakers at universities but fund mosques preaching jihad, that's not dialogue. When the FBI warns of Hamas cells on U.S. soil but Congress still pushes a Palestinian state, that's not foreign policy, that's a suicide note. And the worst part? We've seen this before. In 1938, the West shrugged as Hitler annexed the Sudetenland. Peace in our time, they cheered. We know how that ended. Today, the same cowards rationalize Hamas's rockets as resistance. They'll call you a bigot for quoting the Quran, but won't lift a finger as Christians are beheaded in Nigeria or gay men tossed off roofs in Gaza. I don't blame the Palestinians for wanting a better life. Hell, I'll fight too. But don't sell me a lie wrapped in a flag. This conflict wasn't born in 1967 or 48. It's ancient, tribal, a zero-sum game where forgiveness is blasphemy and mercy is weakness. The West keeps dreaming of a peace process, but you can't negotiate with eschatology. Wake up. This isn't a dispute. It's a holy war. And in holy wars, there are no sidelines, only graves.